Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Sisters Corner. I'm joined today by Asma and IQRA, both of whom are amazing women who are making waves in the sporting world as well as the community and have come through that. Battle scarred a little bit maybe, but actually stronger, and I think our community is probably stronger for it as well. So before the break we heard from IQRA a little bit about the challenges and some of the perceptions her mum had of women in sport and actually how she overcame that with the support, alhamdulillah, of her father, which I must say is quite heartwarming to hear.
Thank you.
It's football, isn't it? It's the game, it's the magical game that everyone's obsessed with. Personally, I don't get it, but each to his own. And we unfortunately didn't have time to talk to Asma before the break about her early career, which we'll pick up on now. So thank you again both for joining us. So Asma, you started with a variety of sports, you said, at school. When you started to get a bit more serious, what did your family make of it?
So when my family knew like that I was at uni playing basketball, and then it got to a point where I felt that I wanted to pursue this for the rest of my life, basically, or at least up until I get too old to play. So I remember coming back home for the weekend and then getting my dad to come up to my room and saying to him, look, I want to talk to you about this. I love this sport. I want to do it for the rest of my life. You know, what do you think of this? And he was so supportive. He kind of told me about his sporting kind of background and how he used to play when he was younger, and how he really appreciated that I wanted to do something that would make me healthier, that would basically promote like a lot of positive things within the community. So he was supportive, and as soon as I got his approval, I didn't really feel like I needed anyone else's approval, to be honest. So and then he just influenced my mum in the same way. He kind of highlighted how important it was for me to pursue something that I would enjoy and I'm passionate about.
Alhamdulillah, that's so lovely though, isn't it? Because sometimes in our, I say culture because I don't think it's religious, various cultures, we kind of forget the parenting and the beautiful role that fathers can and should have in their children's lives. You know, it's not just mums, you know, policing the behaviour of their daughters, because it shouldn't be about that. And actually, if the point of parenting is to raise, you know, decent children who can go away and, you know, live their life in society, being productive members of society, then obviously fathers have a really key role to hear that. So mashallah, and, you know, congratulations, well done to you for being born into such a family, but also for your parents for supporting you in this way. So you overcame your challenges at home. What about in the sporting world? So you talked a little bit there about stopping because you weren't made very welcome. Previously, in the very seat you're sat in, we've had Ikram Butt, who's a rugby player, professional rugby player, and actually the challenges he had to overcome at a professional level, you know, and we're talking internationally. So what kind of challenges did you both meet as you're becoming, you know, in your semi-pro professional sort of worlds, and how have you overcome them?
Well, with me, the first time I actually was challenged was when I went for my first trial, because everyone told me you're good enough, you should go try it. So I went for a trial for a local team, and like I said, I was the only Muslim girl there, and because I do play with my headscarf on, I do look different. So I was stood there and the session was around 45 minutes, so I was stood there for the full 45 minutes just in the same spot with no one even acknowledging me, not even the coaches. So then I went back and I thought that was a bit pointless.
So were you on the field at this point?
Yeah, I was literally stood in the middle of the pitch.
All right,
I was like a ghost.
I was just going to say, so it's not much of a game if no one passes a
No,
ball
exactly.
to you.
They literally passed round me,
okay.
like I wasn't even there. So then I thought, forget that, I'm not going back. So I didn't go back. I stopped playing for 2 years, and then when I joined uni, I thought, let me just give it another try. So when I played my first ever game for Bradford Uni, I scored in my first game. So I thought, well, I must be decent if I've scored in my first game. So since then I've been playing. Sometimes you get a bit of stick from a referee who once a referee asked me, do I have to wear this on my head when I'm playing, and I said, yeah, I do, and then I just walked off. So you get a bit of stick from it from the fans or from other people, because most of the time when I do play, I am the only Asian there. But you just love the game enough to ignore that. You just carry on. And now people have become a lot more open to it.
So are you the only Asian girl or the only Asian person?
Well, I play in female-only teams, so
right.
The referees are usually male, but they're obviously always white. But I am the only Muslim girl with a headscarf, and obviously even in like when it's roasting hot, I have to cover my arms and legs and everything, so I always do look different.
Right.
So I do stand out.
Okay, but equally, does it stop you playing? Does it affect your performance?
No, because it wants me to prove I'm wrong. Like if I score a goal, then I'd look at him like, what were you saying before?
Yeah, and I suppose the point I'm making is having your arms and legs covered, does it make you
No.
less of a football player?
No, exactly the same as everyone else. I just get that little bit hotter, but you have to deal with
You
it.
kind of adjust a
Yeah.
bit, don't you? Because I remember when I first started wearing the hijab full time when I was younger, a long time ago, and I was very much in a minority, you know, we're talking over
Yeah.
20 odd years ago now, in Bradford, and initially summers were really difficult, but you kind of do
You
acclimatise.
get used to it.
And I used to briefly do a martial arts myself, and it was hot, but I always wore my hijab, and
Exactly. yeah.
we had a sort of martial arts and drama group, and it was part of my youth work basically, and we used to go and do touring social messaging sessions and stuff, and we all wore, those of us who wore a hijab, and hands, legs, everything covered. It was
Yeah.
possible to be decent and do all of
It
that
is,
as
I
well.
know. It
Yeah.
is.
So absolutely. So and there is an issue with racism in football, isn't there? Unfortunately, I
yeah.
know, like the national, I've forgotten what they're called, the National Association. They have a kick out of racism
Yeah.
thing. I know locally, Bradford City do a lot of work around, you know, getting involved in the local community, getting people, well, basically kicking racism off the
Yeah,
terraces.
It's working. It's getting there.
Is it?
Yeah. It's become
Yeah.
a lot less. It's different than it was before. Now people are a lot more accepting. They just see you as another player on the pitch.
It looks a lot more diverse.
It is a lot more
Definitely.
diverse,
And it's interesting was when you watch around match day as well, the kind of people going, you see a little bit more
Yeah,
in.
a bit of everyone.
Yeah, I grew up in Manningham, so right on the doorstep of it. Don't still understand it. My brother's always been football mad. Not my cup of tea, but I went to watch a rugby match a few weeks ago. Kind of really liked it. I was so surprised by how much I enjoyed it. I was not expecting it. I really was, and I was like, oh, I might have to come back again. So it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Seeing different
things.
sports as well. It's good.
A little bit violent, but a lot more happens
That's the
in it
good
than
thing
football.
about it.
A lot more happens than football.
It
because-
does. It's a lot more action.
Yeah, because I was just sat there. The next minute there was 6 goals, and I was like, "What happened? How did they get 6 points?" And then I turned around, and it was like 12 points. So it's just like,
Yeah,
"Oh yeah,
it's really
that's
quick.
happens absolutely." So what about yourself, Asma?
So for me, my personal journey was a bit different. Like I was really good at every sport that I played as a growing up. So basketball was the first sport that really challenged me mentally and physically because I'm quite small for a basketball player. And
I was just gonna say, you don't really.
and because I
Yeah.
played netball for so long, in netball there's certain rules that means that you basically there's no physical contact. Whereas basketball there's a lot of physical contact. So initially I had to adjust to this idea of like someone is coming right at me as soon as I've got the ball. So initially I used to just like throw the ball as soon as I got it and like really avoid it. And then I had to kind of create sort of patterns in my head. Okay, so if you get this ball, what are the options that you have? And then I'd take one of the other options. And instead of just passing it basically. And then it just like, I had to get more confident with it. And then it's such a team sport as well. So there's team dynamics and there's not a lot of Muslim girls in basketball either. So then it's kind of like adjusting to other stuff outside of the game, because outside of the game you have socials, and in these socials that's when you really get to know your team players, and when you get to know your team players that's when you get the chemistry on the court. So trying to kind of navigate around all of that and trying to fit into a team, and then at the same time trying to like overcome my own personal challenges. So it was a bit tricky, but I feel like I still want to continue up until I get to a level where I'm actually satisfied and I feel like I've achieved something.
And you're not there yet, by the sounds
Yeah,
of
I'm
it.
not there yet.
Right. So, just help me out. Do you classify you a semi-pro? Where do you stand in the?
So in professional basketball, the hijab is actually banned. Not just the hijab, but any gear over 5 centimeters, headgear. But we actually have tomorrow. There's a conference, and they will be deciding whether the ban will be lifted or not. And we've actually been campaigning for that for the past basically 2 to 3 years. So inshallah that is going to get lifted, and if it does it will literally change history, because it will mean that Muslim women and people that wear like turbans etc. can actually start playing basketball professionally and in the WNBAs and everything.
Wow. So in a way that's a very, very practical barrier to you know, progressing your career because
Yeah.
of your desire and your need to wear the hijab. Oh, that's fantastic news. So viewers, inshallah, you know, join us in prayer for Asma and is it FIBA?
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So and tomorrow, hopefully, the ruling is that the hijab and other head coverings and religious head coverings will be allowed. That will be fantastic, actually. So, in terms of what I've just understood there as well, by the way, that basketball is the rugby to not ball like football. There's one slightly more vicious and one slightly easier. But that's really, neither of them are really traditional sports for women, are they? And then we've just touched a little bit there about racism. You know, I know even recently we've had the chanting of the terraces, you know, to international football players actually, which is appalling in this day and age, because if you enjoy the sport, and very serious fans do, don't they? They don't care who's playing, they just want the game to be good, which I just do think is where we all need to go, really. So you're going to overcome that challenge, inshallah, tomorrow. You know, the world is going to change. Hot off the press, Asma's here today with us. How will we let everybody know, Asma?
So I think people are just going to probably tweet about it. They're going to Facebook about it. It's quite a big thing. So everyone's talking about it at the moment, obviously, like in my circle. So I think they'll probably hear about it on the news, to be honest, because it's quite big.
Fantastic, but you heard it here almost first. Not quite, but almost. That's really good. So we've talked a bit about, you know, your early childhood, your early attempts, and a little bit into your careers there. How many times, or have you, you know, come across people telling you that it's not religious, you know, it's not acceptable within our culture, our religion, particularly for women to be involved in sport? Has that been an issue for you?
I haven't heard it as much, to be fair. It's more culture than it is religion, like you did say before, because people don't really take, like you said, it's not, you don't really see Muslim women in sports, so not many people take notice of who is playing the game. They're more interested in the men's side of it, so I didn't really hear much of that. I think the odd few comments, or are you allowed to play football like that? You're allowed to run around in front of men in your shorts and stuff. So you do hear the odd comments, but...
You're fully dressed, aren't you?
Exactly, fully covered, but you still hear it, sometimes.
Okay, and what about you, Asma?
For me, it wasn't like in my day-to-day life, not so much, but mostly when we started the campaign, because it was literally open to the public, so people were just commenting. And then we got Muslim people basically saying that as Muslim women, we should respect ourselves and like basically go back to the kitchen. And which was a bit...
Right, hold that thought, Asma. We're going to go for another quick break, and when we come back, I'd really like to hear about some of that, because I think it's really powerful that we talk about things like that. So viewers, inshallah, we'll see you on the other side of this break.